I've seen death in every corner of the world. I've seen what shrapnel does to a human body, and I've seen what a high-caliber round does to a concrete wall. But nothing prepares you for the photo of your own father lying on his kitchen floor, his chest turned into a ruin of red. 15 times. That wasn't a robbery. That was an execution. That was rage. And as I boarded the plane home, I stopped being a son. I became a hunter. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. The flight back from deployment usually feels like a decompression chamber. You spend 12 hours staring at the seat back in front of you, trying to shove the things you've done and the things you've seen into a little mental box so you can hug your wife without shaking. But this time, there was no box. There was only the image the detective had texted me, against protocol, because he used to serve with my uncle. My father, Mason, was a big man. He was 6'2", a retired iron worker who had hands like catcher's mitts and a laugh that could rattle windows. To take him down would require surprise or overwhelming force. To stab him 15 times meant he probably knew the person. He probably let them in. I didn't tell Amelia I was landing early. I didn't want the banner, the balloons, or the fake smiles people wear when they don't know what to say to the grieving guy. I took a cab straight from the airfield to the house my father had built with his own hands 40 years ago. The crime tape was gone, but the darkness clinging to the property felt heavy, like a wet wool blanket. I walked up the driveway, my sea bag slung over my shoulder. The house was dark, which was strange for 7 p.m. Amelia knew I was coming home eventually, but she didn't know I was standing on the porch right now. I keyed the lock. The mechanism clicked, a sound I'd heard 1,000 times, but tonight it sounded like a gunshot. I pushed the door open. "Amelia?" I called out. My voice was rough and used for days. There was a shuffle from the kitchen. The same kitchen where it happened. Amelia came around the corner, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked polished. That was the only word for it. Her hair was perfectly curled, her makeup was fresh, and she was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Not exactly the look of a woman mourning her father-in-law who had been buried 3 days ago while I was stuck in transit. "Blake." She froze, her eyes going wide. "Oh my God, Blake." She rushed forward and threw her arms around me. I hugged her back, but my body remained rigid. I was trained to notice details, micro-expressions, environmental anomalies, the scent of adrenaline. Amelia didn't smell like grief. She smelled like expensive perfume and white wine. I thought you were coming in tomorrow," she stammered, pulling back. Her hands smoothed the front of my uniform jacket. "Why didn't you call?" "I wanted to see you," I said, my eyes drifting over her shoulder to the kitchen. The floor had been scrubbed. The grout looked brighter than I remembered. Someone had bleached the life out of that room. It's been awful, Blake," she said, her voice dropping to that hush people use for tragedies. "Just awful. Your dad. I still can't believe it." "Where were you?" I asked. It was a simple question. Natural. But I saw the flicker. A tiny, quarter-second hesitation before her mask reset. "I was here," she said quickly. "Well, not here. I was at my mom's place. Clara was having a panic attack about everything. You know how she gets." "Right," I said. "Speaking of mom," Amelia said, turning slightly. "She's in the living room. She's been staying here with me. I couldn't stay in this house alone. Not after." I walked past her, into the living room. My mother-in-law, Clara, was sitting on the floral armchair, a glass of Chardonnay in her hand. Clara was a woman who prided herself on appearances. She was the kind of woman who wore pearls to the grocery store. Tonight, she looked impeccable, but her eyes were glassy. "Blake," Clara said, not standing up. "Thank heavens you're home. Your poor father." "Clara," I nodded. I didn't move toward her. I stood in the archway, scanning the room. "It was a break-in, they say," Clara said, taking a sip of her wine. "Drug addicts, probably. The city is going to hell, Blake. Absolute hell. I told Mason he needed a security system. I told him. 15 times, Clara," I said softly. The glass stopped halfway to her lips. "Excuse me." The detective told me he was stabbed 15 times, I said, stepping into the room. Addicts don't do that. Addicts grab the TV and run. If they get cornered, maybe they slash once to get away. 15 times is passion. 15 times is someone who wanted to make sure he felt every second of it. The room went dead silent. The air conditioner hummed, a low drone that suddenly felt deafening. Amelia walked in behind me, her hand touching my lower back. "Blake, honey, don't," she whispered. "Don't do this to yourself. You're looking for a reason, but sometimes bad things just happen." "I'm not looking for a reason," I said, looking from my wife to her mother. "I'm looking for a mistake." Clara set her glass down. "A little too hard." "A mistake? The police have done their job, Blake. They found fingerprints on the back door. They're looking for a homeless man seen in the area." "A homeless man?" I repeated. "Who knew exactly when Dad would be home, knew he didn't have a dog, and decided to ignore the cash on the counter and instead butcher a 200-pound man in his kitchen." "You sound paranoid," Clara said, her tone shifting from sympathy to defense. "You've been away too long. The war, it messes with your head." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe it makes me see things clearly." I looked at the coffee table. There was a stack of condolence cards. On top of the pile was a large, expensive bouquet of lilies. The card attached was large, cream-colored, with elegant handwriting. "With deepest sympathy, Eliza." "Who is Eliza?" I asked. Amelia stiffened beside me. "Oh, that's just a friend of Mom's. You met her once at the wedding, I think." "The quiet one." "Eliza sent flowers?" I asked, walking over to the table. "That's nice. Did she know Dad?" "Not really," Clara said quickly. She knows how close we all are. She's a very supportive friend." I picked up the card. It smelled like the kitchen. Bleach and something else. Something metallic. I looked at my hands. I looked at the women standing in my father's house, drinking wine while the earth over his grave was still fresh. My gut, the same gut that had kept me alive through 4 tours in places you can't find on a map, tightened. Something was wrong here. The air was too thin. The answers were too rehearsed. "I'm going to go see the detective tomorrow," I said, dropping the card back onto the table. "Why?" Amelia asked, her voice rising an octave. "Blake, let them do their job. You need to rest. You need to grieve." "I will grieve," I said, turning to face them both. "When I'm done." I walked toward the stairs to take my bag up to our room, but I stopped at the bottom step. I looked back. Amelia and Clara were exchanging a look. It wasn't a look of concern for a traumatized soldier. It was the look 2 people share when they realize the dog they just kicked might bite back. I didn't tell them I was a SEAL. To them, I was just Navy, a logistics guy, a paper pusher who got deployed to sandboxes. They thought I fixed trucks. They had no idea I fixed problems. I stared at the small apartment complex. It was a brick building, faded by years of sun and neglect, with a metal staircase that rattled in the wind. Eliza Thorne lived in Unit 2B. I parked the truck down the block, out of sight. I didn't want to spook her. I adjusted my cap and walked toward the building. My mind was already running tactical scenarios. What if she's armed? What if she's not alone? What if Felix, the homeless man, is actually shacked up in there? I climbed the stairs, my boots silent on the metal grating. I reached door 2B and listened. Nothing. No TV, no voices. I knocked. 3 sharp raps. A moment later, the peephole darkened. Then, a chain slid back, and the door cracked open a few inches. A woman peered out. She was small, maybe late 40s, with mousy brown hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired, nervous. "Eliza?" I asked. She blinked. "Yes. I'm Blake, Mason's son." The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. She tried to slam the door, but my boot was already in the jam. I didn't shove. I just held it firm. "I'm not here to hurt you, Eliza," I said, my voice calm but low. "I just want to talk about the flowers." I don't know what you mean," she stammered, her hands trembling on the door. "Please go away." You sent lilies to my father's funeral, I said. You signed the card. You knew him. I didn't, she cried a little too loud. I work with Clara. She was so upset. I sent them for her. Clara said she didn't know you well. I countered. She said you were just an acquaintance. But you spent $50 on flowers for a man you never met? On a Tuesday? She swallowed hard. Her eyes darted to the parking lot behind me. She was terrified. Not of me. Of something else. Look, I said, softening my tone. I found a notebook in my father's desk. He wrote about a woman. A woman who wouldn't leave him alone. That wasn't me, she blurted out. I know it wasn't you, I said. It was Clara. Her eyes went wide. The fight went out of her. She slumped against the doorframe, defeated. Can I come in? I asked. She hesitated, then stepped back, opening the door wide enough for me to pass. The apartment was small and cluttered, filled with boxes of craft supplies and stacks of magazines. It smelled like lavender and stale cigarette smoke. I sat on the edge of a worn-out sofa. She sat in a rocking chair opposite me, hugging a throw pillow to her chest. Tell me about Clara, I said. Eliza took a shaky breath. We've been friends for 20 years. Since our kids were in preschool. She's always been intense. When she wants something, she gets it. And she wanted my father, I stated. Eliza nodded. After your mom died. Clara thought it was her turn. She's been obsessed with him for years, Blake. She used to talk about him constantly. How strong he was. How he could fix anything. She thought if she just pushed hard enough, he'd see it too. But he didn't, I said. No, she whispered. He turned her down. Harshly, she said. Called her delusional. So she got angry. She was furious, Eliza said. She came over here that night, the night it happened. She was raving. Said he humiliated her. Said no one humiliates Clara Westfield. Wait, I said, leaning forward. She was here? At your apartment? What time? Around 8, Eliza said. She stayed until midnight. We drank 2 bottles of wine. She passed out on my couch. My mind raced. The murder happened between 9 o'clock and 10 p.m. If Clara was here, passed out drunk, she couldn't have held the knife. Are you sure about the time? I asked. Positive, Eliza said. We were watching a movie. The Notebook. It started at 8. Did she leave the room? Make any calls? No. She was right here. I sat back, confused. If Clara had an alibi, a real one, witnessed by a friend, then she didn't kill him. But the notebook, the motive, it all pointed to her. Unless, Eliza, I said slowly, did Clara ever talk about a man named Felix? She frowned. Felix? No, I don't know a Felix. What about Amelia? Did Clara talk about her? All the time, Eliza said. She loves Amelia. Said she's the only one who understands her. Said Amelia would do anything for her mother. A cold chill went down my spine. Anything? I asked. Eliza nodded. They have a special bond. Clara always says, Amelia is my hands. Amelia is my hands. I stood up. Thank you, Eliza. You've been very helpful. Please don't tell her I talked to you, she begged, gripping the pillow tighter. She can be scary when she's mad. I won't, I promised. I walked back to my truck, my mind reeling. Clara had the motive, but she had an alibi. Amelia had lied about where she was. She said she was with Clara, but Clara was with Eliza. So where was Amelia? I pulled out my phone and dialed Tristan again. Change of plans, I typed. Need everything you have on Amelia. Phone records. GPS data for the night of the 15th. And find out if she has any connection to a Felix Marlowe. I hit send. I drove back toward the house, the sun starting to dip lower in the sky. The shadows were getting longer. When I pulled into the driveway, Amelia's car was gone. But Clara's sedan was there. I walked into the house. It was quiet again. I went into the kitchen. Clara was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of soup. She looked up and smiled. A warm, grandmotherly smile. Blake, she said. You're back. I made chowder. Your favorite. Where's Amelia? I asked. She went to the store, Clara said. We needed milk. I looked at the knife block on the counter. It was a standard set. One slot was empty. The chef's knife. Clara, I said, walking over to the counter. Do you know where the big knife is? She didn't look up from the pot. Oh, that? I think Amelia broke the tip off trying to open a coconut a few weeks ago. We threw it out. A coconut, I repeated. Yes, she said, tasting the soup. Silly girl. I looked at her hands. They were smooth. Manicured. Not the hands of a killer, but the hands of a puppeteer? Maybe. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a file from Tristan. Subject, Amelia Vance. GPS location night of 15th, 2015. Home 2130, 1400 block, River Road, abandoned industrial park, 2245. Home call log. 3 calls to unknown burner phone. River Road. That wasn't her mother's house. And it definitely wasn't the grocery store. The soup smells great, Clara, I said, putting my phone away. I'm going to go wash up. Take your time, she said sweetly. I went upstairs to our bedroom. I went straight to Amelia's closet. I pushed aside the dresses and coats until I reached the back. There was a shoebox on the top shelf. I pulled it down. Inside, tucked under a pair of old winter boots, was a receipt. A pawn shop receipt. Dated the day after the murder. Item, gold watch. Men's. Engraved to Mason, love Dad. My father's watch. The one he never took off. Amelia had pawned it. I stared at the slip of paper, my blood turning to ice. Why would she pawn a watch worth maybe $200? Unless she needed cash fast. Cash that couldn't be traced. Cash for a burner phone. Or cash for a man named Felix. I heard the front door open downstairs. Honey, I'm home. Amelia's voice called out, cheerful and bright. I put the receipt in my pocket. I'm upstairs, I called back. I looked in the mirror. My face was calm. My eyes were dead. The hunt was on. I stayed in the bedroom for another minute, just breathing. In, hold, out. Tactical breathing. It lowers the heart rate, sharpens the focus. I needed both right now because the woman downstairs, the woman I had sworn to protect, the woman I slept next to, had just become a target. I walked down the stairs. Amelia was in the kitchen, unpacking groceries. She looked up and smiled, that same bright, practiced smile she'd worn since I got home. Hey you, she said, holding up a carton of almond milk. I got the good stuff. I know you hate the sweetened kind. Thanks, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Did you get everything you needed? Yep, just the basics. She turned back to the fridge. Clara said you broke the chef's knife? I said. Casual. Conversational. Amelia's hand froze for a fraction of a second on the refrigerator door handle. Then she pulled it open. Oh, yeah. Stupid coconut. I was trying to make that curry you like. The tip snapped right off. When was that? A few weeks ago. What? She closed the fridge and looked at me, her expression the picture of innocence. Just wondering, I said. I was going to sharpen it. Well, it's gone, she said, brushing a stray hair from her face. Mom's making chowder. You hungry? Starving, I lied. We sat at the dining table. The 3 of us. A family. Or a grotesque parody of one. Clara served the soup, ladling it into bowls with a steady hand. Amelia chatted about the neighbors, about the weather, about nothing. I watched them. I watched how Amelia's eyes darted to her mother every time I spoke. I watched how Clara would give a nearly imperceptible nod, like a conductor guiding a musician. They were in sync, a rhythm built on secrets. So, Clara said, tearing a piece of bread, have you thought about what you're going to do with the house? I looked up. The house. Well, it's a lot of work, Clara said. Big yard. Old plumbing. Amelia was saying maybe it would be better to sell. Get something fresh. Something with less memories. I'm not selling, I said. This house is Mason's legacy. It's just a building, Blake. Amelia said softly, reaching for my hand. It's where he died. Don't you think it might be hard to live here? For us. Us, I repeated. Yes, us, she said, squeezing my fingers. We have to think about our future. I am thinking about it, I said. I pulled my hand away to pick up my spoon. I'm thinking about it a lot. The dinner dragged on. I ate the soup. It tasted like ash. Afterward, Clara went to her room to read, and Amelia sat on the couch to watch TV. I told her I had paperwork to catch up on and went back to the study. I closed the door and locked it. I pulled out my phone. Tristan had sent another file. Subject: Felix Marlowe. Criminal record: B&E, aggravated assault, possession. Known associates: none current. Last known location: St. Jude's Shelter, downtown. But then, a second message. Update: ran cross-reference on Felix Marlowe and Amelia Vance. Hit. I opened the attachment. It was a blurry photo from a security camera. An ATM in a bad part of town. The timestamp was 3 weeks ago. In the frame, a woman was handing a stack of cash to a man in a hoodie. The woman was Amelia. The man was thin, scraggly, with a distinctive tattoo on his neck. A spiderweb. I zoomed in. It was him. Felix. Why was my wife paying a junkie 3 weeks before the murder? This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This was a contract. A cheap, messy contract, but a contract nonetheless. I needed to find Felix. Before the police did. And definitely before Amelia or Clara got to him. If he was the loose end, they'd be looking to snip him soon. I waited until 100 hours. Amelia was asleep. I checked. Deep, REM sleep. I changed into black cargo pants, a dark hoodie, and my boots. I grabbed a small tactical flashlight and a multi-tool. I didn't have a weapon. My service pistol was locked in a safe I couldn't access without alerting Amelia, but I didn't need a gun to talk to a junkie. I slipped out the back door, avoiding the creaky step on the porch. The night air was cool. I jogged to the end of the block where I'd parked my truck earlier, killed the headlights, and rolled out. St. Jude's Shelter was in the industrial district. A concrete block of misery. At this hour, the doors were locked, but the alleyways around it were alive. Shadows moved. Lighters flickered. I parked a block away and walked. I scanned the faces huddled in doorways. I was looking for a spiderweb tattoo. It took me an hour. I found him behind a liquor store, curled up on a piece of cardboard, shivering. Felix, I said. He bolted upright, scrambling backward like a crab. I didn't do it. I didn't take nothing. Quiet, I hissed, stepping into the shadow with him. I'm not a cop. He squinted at me, his eyes blown wide. Who are you? You the guy? What guy? The husband, he whispered. She said you were away. She said you wouldn't be back. She lied, I said. Stand up. He scrambled to his feet, shaking. He looked sick. Withdrawal. Or fear. Probably both. I didn't kill him, Felix stammered. I swear to God, man. I was just supposed to scare him. That's all. She said. Go in, rough him up, take the TV. She wanted it to look like a break-in. Who? I asked. Who told you that? The young one, he said. Amelia. She gave me $500. Said her old man was abusive. Said she needed him to learn a lesson. My blood boiled. Mason wasn't abusive. He was a saint. So you broke in, I said. Yeah. I went in through the back. But he was waiting. Felix's eyes darted around the alley. The old man. He was sitting at the table, drinking coffee. He looked at me, and he just smiled. Like he knew. And then he stood up. I pulled the knife, just to scare him. But he grabbed my wrist. He was strong, man. Crazy strong. He twisted my arm. The knife fell. Felix stopped. He looked down at his hands. And then I pressed. And then she came in. Felix whispered. Who? Amelia? No. The other one. The older one. The mom. Clara. She came out of the pantry, Felix said, his voice trembling. She picked up the knife. The old man was holding me, looking at me, telling me to get out. He didn't see her. She walked up behind him, and she just started stabbing. I felt the air leave my lungs. She didn't stop, Felix said, tears streaming down his dirty face. She was screaming. Not words. Just sounds. Like an animal. I ran, and I didn't look back. Where's the knife, Felix? I don't know. I left it. I just ran. I grabbed him by the collar of his jacket. You're going to tell the police this. Exactly like you told me. No. He struggled. They'll pin it on me. My prints are there. I have a record. If you don't tell them, I will find you again, I said, my voice dropped dead calm. And next time, we won't be talking. I let him go. He slumped against the wall. Stay here, I ordered. I'm calling Detective Callahan. I pulled out my phone. But before I could dial, a black sedan screeched into the alley entrance, blocking the exit. High beams blinded me. 2 doors opened. 2 men got out. They weren't police. They were dressed in cheap suits, moving with the heavy, flat-footed gait of hired muscle. Hey, one of them shouted. Step away from the junkie. I shielded my eyes. Who are you? Friends of the family, the man sneered. Clara. She must have had someone watching Felix. Cleaning up loose ends. Run, Felix, I said quietly. What? Run, I roared. Felix took off down the alley, scrambling over a dumpster and disappearing into the dark. The 2 men started toward me. One of them pulled a baton. The other reached inside his jacket. I dropped my phone into my pocket and raised my hands, palms open. The universal sign of surrender. Or, in my line of work, the optimal starting position for close-quarters combat. Gentlemen, I said, you have made a very serious mistake. The 2 men were big. Hard muscle usually is. They trade speed for size and intelligence for intimidation. But in a narrow alleyway filled with trash cans and uneven pavement, size is a liability. Last chance, the one with the baton said, slapping it against his palm. Walk away, soldier boy. This doesn't concern you. My father was murdered, I said, my voice flat. Everything concerns me. The second man, the one reaching into his jacket, made his move. He pulled a snub-nosed revolver. Amateur. He held it sideways, like he'd seen in movies, which meant his aim would be garbage beyond 5 feet. I didn't wait. I closed the distance in a burst of speed. I grabbed his wrist with my left hand, twisting it outward until the bone snapped with a wet crack. The gun clattered to the pavement. He screamed, but I silenced him with a palm strike to the throat. He collapsed, gasping for air. The baton swinger hesitated. That was his mistake. I swept his leg, bringing him down hard onto a pile of wet cardboard. Before he could scramble up, I had my boot on his chest, applying just enough pressure to let him know I could crush his sternum if I wanted to. Who pays you? I asked. Screw you, he wheezed. I pressed harder. Wrong answer. Let's try again. Who sent you to clean up Felix? We got a text, he choked out. Anonymous number. Just a location and a description. Said, make sure the junkie doesn't talk. And the payment. Crypto. Half up front. Professional. Detached. Whoever was running this knew how to keep their hands clean. But Clara wasn't this sophisticated. She was a jealous woman who drank too much Chardonnay. She didn't use burner phones and crypto wallets. Someone else was pulling the strings. Get out of here, I said, stepping back. And tell your boss I'm coming. They scrambled away, dragging their injured friend into the sedan and peeling out of the alley. I picked up the revolver from the ground. A cheap .38 special. Serial number filed off. I pocketed it. Better I have it than them. I got back in my truck and sat there for a moment, the adrenaline fading into a cold, sharp clarity. Felix said Clara did it. He saw her. But Amelia was the one paying Felix weeks ago. Amelia was the one with the burner phone. Why would Amelia hire a hitman to rough up her own father-in-law? Unless it wasn't about roughing him up. Unless she knew exactly what Clara would do if she had the chance. I drove home. It was 0300 hours. When I walked into the house, it was silent. I went upstairs. Amelia was still asleep, exactly where I left her. I stripped off my clothes, hid the gun in the back of the closet, and slid into bed. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to my wife breathe. She smelled like vanilla and deceit. The next morning, the atmosphere in the house had shifted. It was subtle, but I felt it. Clara was too cheerful. Amelia was too quiet. I'm going to the bank, Amelia announced over coffee. I need to sort out some of Mason's accounts. The lawyer said we need to consolidate the assets. I'll come with you, I said. No, she said too quickly. Then she softened. I mean, you don't need to deal with that boring stuff, honey. You relax. You've been through enough. I insist, I said, taking a sip of black coffee. He was my father. It's my responsibility. She looked at Clara. Clara gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shrug. Okay, Amelia said tightly. If you want. We drove to the bank in silence. When we sat down with the branch manager, a slick guy named Peterson, he looked nervous. Mr. Vance, Peterson said, shuffling papers. I was just explaining to your wife. There's been some significant activity on your father's account in the last month. What kind of activity? I asked. Withdrawals, Peterson said. Large cash withdrawals. $10,000 a week. For 6 weeks. $60,000. Who authorized them? I asked. Well, Mason did, Peterson said. He came in personally. He seemed distressed. Distressed how? Anxious. Looking over his shoulder. He told me he was paying off a debt. I looked at Amelia. She was staring at her hands, her face pale. Did he say who the debt was to? I asked. No, Peterson said. But he did mention he was being blackmailed. The word hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Blackmail. Did he say by who? No, Peterson said. But he said something odd. He said, it's always the ones you feed who bite your hand. We left the bank. Amelia was shaking. As soon as we got in the car, she burst into tears. I knew it, she sobbed. I knew he was in trouble. That's why I didn't want you to see the accounts. I didn't want to ruin his memory for you. Stop it, I said. She froze. What? Stop the act, Amelia. I pulled the car over to the side of the road. We were on a quiet street lined with oak trees. I know about Felix, I said. Her breath hitched. Who? The junkie you paid 3 weeks ago. The one with the spiderweb tattoo. I have the photo, Amelia. I have the GPS logs. I know you were at the industrial park that night. She stared at me, her eyes wide with terror. But not the kind of terror an innocent person feels. It was the terror of a trapped animal. You're spying on me? She whispered. I'm finding the truth, I said. Felix told me everything. He said you hired him to break in. To scare Dad. But then Clara showed up. And she didn't just scare him. Amelia covered her face with her hands. Oh God, Blake. Why? I asked. Why did you hire Felix? She lowered her hands. Her face was streaked with mascara. Because Mom was going crazy. She was obsessed with him. She kept saying if she couldn't have him, no one could. I thought if I staged a break-in, Dad would get scared. Maybe he'd move in with us. Maybe he'd sell the house and leave town. I was trying to save him from her. By hiring a meth head to assault him. I didn't know what else to do, she screamed. You were gone. You're always gone. I was dealing with this alone. Mom was spiraling, drinking every day, talking about burning his house down. I had to do something. So you sent Felix, I said slowly. And Clara followed him. I don't know how she knew. Amelia cried. I swear. I didn't tell her. She must have followed me when I met him. She must have figured it out. It sounded plausible. Desperate, stupid, but plausible. But there was one piece missing. What about the $60,000? I asked. Who was blackmailing him? Amelia went silent. She looked out the window. Amelia, I warned. It wasn't blackmail, she whispered. Then what was it? She turned to me, her eyes hollow. It was tuition. Tuition. For me, she said. I have a gambling problem, Blake. Online poker. I lost everything. Our savings. My inheritance. I was in the hole deep. Dad found out. He was paying my debts to keep the loan sharks away from us. My stomach dropped. The debt wasn't his. It was hers. He told me he was going to cut me off, Amelia said, her voice trembling. That night, he called me and said, no more, Amelia. Tell Blake, or I will. He was going to tell you everything when you got home. I stared at her. The pieces were clicking into place. A jagged, ugly puzzle. Amelia had a motive. Silence. Clara had a motive. Jealousy. And they both were there that night. You lied, I said. You weren't with Clara at her mom's house. You were there too, weren't you? No, she shrieked. I wasn't. I was at the park waiting for Felix to call and tell me it was done. When he didn't call, I drove by the house. I saw the police lights. I knew. I knew it went wrong. Felix said Clara did the stabbing. I said. She did. Amelia insisted. She must have. She's unstable, Blake. You know she is. And you're covering for her, I said. Because if she goes down, she takes you with her. She tells the cops you hired the break-in. Amelia sobbed into her hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I put the car in gear. Where are we going? She asked, panicked. Home, I said. We're going to have a family meeting. I didn't tell her that I had one more card to play. I didn't tell her that I had taken the revolver from the thug in the alley. And I didn't tell her that the loan sharks she mentioned, I knew who they were. Because in my line of work, you learn the names of the people who break legs for money. And they don't take payment from retired iron workers. They take it from the source. Amelia was lying about the money, which meant she was lying about everything else. The drive home was silent, but the air inside the truck was thick enough to choke on. Amelia stared out the window, her hands twisting in her lap, her knuckles white. She was terrified. Good. Fear makes people sloppy. Fear makes them talk. When we pulled into the driveway, I killed the engine but didn't unlock the doors. One last thing, I said, staring straight ahead at the dark house. Before we go inside. Amelia flinched. What? You said Clara followed Felix. You said she did the stabbing. But Felix said she was screaming like an animal. Does that sound like your mother? The woman who worries about what the neighbors think if the grass gets too high. You don't know her like I do, Amelia whispered. She snaps. She has a temper. We'll see, I said. I unlocked the doors. We walked up the porch steps. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The lights in the living room were off, but a single lamp burned in the kitchen. I pushed the door open. Clara. Amelia called out, her voice wavering. No answer. I signaled Amelia to stay behind me. I moved into the hallway, my senses dialed up to 11. The smell of bleach was stronger now. Fresh. I walked into the kitchen. Empty. But the back door was unlocked. I stepped out onto the patio. The backyard was dark, the moon hidden behind heavy clouds. I saw a shadow move near the old tool shed my father used for his woodworking. Stay here, I told Amelia. I walked across the grass, my steps silent. The shed door was ajar. A faint light spilled out from inside. I kicked the door open. Clara was there. She was kneeling on the floor, frantically scrubbing a spot on the concrete with a wire brush. Next to her was a bucket of soapy water that had turned a murky pink. She looked up, her eyes wild, hair disheveled. She looked like a cornered rat. Clara, I said. She dropped the brush. Blake. I was just cleaning up. Mason spilled some paint here a few weeks ago. I wanted it to be nice for you. Cut the crap, Clara, I said, stepping inside. The shed smelled of rust and old blood. I know about Felix. I know about the knife. She froze. Her gaze darted past me to Amelia, who was hovering at the shed entrance. Amelia told you? Clara hissed, her face twisting into a sneer. That ungrateful little. She told me she hired Felix to scare Dad. I said. She told me you finished the job. Clara let out a harsh, barking laugh. She stood up, wiping her wet hands on her pants. Is that what she said? That I did it. That I'm the monster. Did you? I loved him. Clara screamed, the sound tearing through the night. I worshipped that man. Yes, I was jealous. Yes, I wanted him. But I didn't kill him. I went there to stop it. I looked at Amelia. She was trembling, tears streaming down her face. Liar, Amelia shouted. You hated him for rejecting you. You told me you wished he was dead. I was venting. Clara yelled back. But you had a reason, didn't you, honey? Clara turned to me, her eyes pleading. Blake, listen to me. I went to the house that night because Eliza called me. She said Amelia was acting strange, talking about fixing the problem. I went there to warn Mason. When I walked in, Felix was gone. Mason was on the floor. And Clara pointed a shaking finger at her daughter. She was holding the knife. The world stopped. I looked at my wife. My sweet, grieving wife who had cried in my arms for 3 nights. Amelia? I asked. Amelia's face changed. The fear evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard mask. The tears stopped instantly. She straightened up, crossing her arms. He was going to cut me off, Blake, she said. Her voice was steady, chillingly steady. He was going to tell you about the gambling, about the debt. He was going to ruin us. Us, I said, disgust rising in my throat. There is no us in this. I did it for us, she snapped. I needed the money. The insurance policy. It pays double for accidental death or homicide. $500,000, Blake. We could have started over. We could have been free. So you stabbed him, I said. 15 times. I had to make it look real, she said, shrugging as if discussing a grocery list. Felix was useless. He panicked. Dad was going to call the cops. I couldn't let him ruin my life. So I finished it. And then you blamed your mother, I said. She was there, Amelia said, glancing at Clara with contempt. She saw me. She helped me clean up. She's just as guilty. She protected me because she knows she's a pathetic, lonely old woman who has nothing else but me. Clara sobbed, collapsing onto a workbench. I'm sorry, Blake. She's my daughter. I couldn't let her go to jail. You're both sick, I said. Maybe, Amelia said, reaching into her pocket. But we're family, and you're not going to do anything about it. She pulled out a small pistol. My pistol, the one from the safe. I changed the combination months ago, she smiled. Did you really think I'd leave a loaded weapon around with a PTSD husband in the house? She leveled the gun at my chest. Goodbye, Blake. I'll tell the police you found out about the affair between Mom and Dad, snapped, killed her, and then shot yourself. It's tragic, really. Another soldier lost to the war. She clicked the safety off. Don't do it, Amelia, Clara screamed. Shut up, Mom. Amelia's finger tightened on the trigger. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. I just looked at her. You forgot one thing, Amelia, I said softly. What? She sneered. I emptied the mag before I left for deployment. Click. The hammer fell on an empty chamber. Amelia stared at the gun in horror. I took a step forward, and I never forget to check my gear. The sound of the empty click echoed in the shed like a thunderclap. Amelia stared at the gun, her eyes wide with disbelief. For a second, she looked like a child who had broken a vase, confused, caught, and terrified. Then the reality of what she had just tried to do crashed down on her. She dropped the weapon. It clattered onto the concrete floor, sliding near Clara's feet. Clara looked at the gun, then at her daughter. The blind loyalty that had kept her silent for weeks finally shattered. She realized that the us Amelia kept talking about didn't include her. Amelia had been ready to frame her own mother, to let her rot in prison, just to save herself. You, Clara whispered, her voice trembling with betrayal. You were going to kill him. You were going to let me take the fall. He knows too much. Amelia shrieked, backing away until she hit the wall of the shed. He's going to ruin everything. Mom, do something. Clara stood up slowly. She looked at me, then back at Amelia. I am doing something, she said. She kicked the gun toward me. I stopped it with my boot. I picked it up, checked the action, still empty, just as I knew it was, and tucked it into my waistband. It's over, Amelia, I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. It was the voice I used when I was calling in an airstrike. No, she screamed. It's not over. It's my word against yours. I'm the grieving widow. You're the unstable veteran. Who are they going to believe? I have no record. You have a file at the VA as thick as a phone book. She was desperate, flailing for leverage. But she was making a classic mistake. She assumed she was the only player on the board. You're right, I said. It might be hard to prove, especially since Clara helped you clean the scene. That makes her an accessory. Her testimony might be seen as coerced. Amelia's eyes lit up with a flicker of hope. Exactly. See, you can't touch me without taking her down too. And you won't do that. You're too noble. I pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen and held it up. The screen was black, but the red recording indicator was pulsing steadily. I've been recording since we got in the car, I said. Everything. The confession about the gambling. the insurance money, the setup with Felix, and just now, the attempt to murder me. Amelia's face went gray. Her knees gave out, and she slid down the wall, crumbling into a heap on the dirty floor. No, she whimpered. Please. Blake. Baby. I can fix this. I can. I can pay you. We can split the money. $500,000. Just delete it. Please. I looked at her. I tried to find the woman I had married. The woman I had laughed with. The woman I had trusted with my life while I was thousands of miles away fighting for people I didn't even know. She wasn't there. She never was. This thing on the floor, this greedy, hollow shell, was a stranger. I don't want your money, I said. I looked at Clara. She was weeping silently, her face buried in her hands. Clara, I said. She looked up. You have a choice, I said. Right now? You can stay here with her and wait for the cops. You'll go down as an accomplice. Obstruction of justice. Maybe conspiracy. You'll die in prison. Clara sobbed harder. Or, I continued, you can walk out of this shed. You can go to the station right now, find Detective Callahan, and turn state's witness. You tell him everything. You give him the clothes she wore that night. I know you didn't burn them, Clara. You're a hoarder. You kept them, didn't you? Clara nodded weakly. They're in my trunk. In a trash bag. Good, I said. You give him the clothes. You give him the knife, because I bet you know where that is too. It's buried, she whispered. Under the rose bush. In the front yard. You give him everything, I said. And maybe, just maybe, you get to live the rest of your miserable life outside a cage. Clara didn't hesitate. She looked at Amelia one last time. There was no love left in her eyes. Only disgust. And fear. I'm going, Clara said. Mom, Amelia screamed. Don't you dare. You coward. You come back here. Clara walked out of the shed without looking back. She disappeared into the darkness of the yard. A minute later, I heard her car start up and peel out of the driveway. I was alone with my wife. Amelia looked up at me, her eyes wet and wild. She started to crawl toward me on her hands and knees. Blake, she begged. Please. We're family. You promised to protect me. Remember our vows? For better or worse? I looked down at her. I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just the cold, professional detachment of a soldier neutralizing a threat. I remember my vows, I said. But you broke yours the minute you plunged a knife into my father's chest. I'll kill myself, she threatened, her voice shrill. I'll do it. If you call the cops, I'll tell them you forced me. I'll scream rape. I'll ruin you. I shook my head. You really don't get it, do you? I dialed a number on my phone. But it wasn't 911. Callahan, a groggy voice answered. Ryder, I said. I'm at the house. I have a confession. And I have the killer. You got her? Ryder asked, instantly alert. Yeah. And Ryder? What? Bring a shovel, I said, looking at the rose bush through the open door. We need to dig up some evidence. I hung up. Amelia lunged. She wasn't going for me. She was going for the workbench. She grabbed a heavy wrench and swung it at my head with a primal scream. I didn't even step back. I caught her arm mid-swing. It was easy. Pathetically easy. I twisted her wrist, forcing her to drop the tool. Then I spun her around and pinned her against the wall, her face pressed into the rough wood. Let go of me, she shrieked, kicking and thrashing. You're done, Amelia, I whispered in her ear. You're done hurting people. I held her there. It took 10 minutes for the sirens to start wailing in the distance. She stopped fighting then. She just sagged against the wall, sobbing. Why? She asked, her voice small and broken. Why did he have to be so stubborn? Why couldn't he just give me the money? Because he was a good man, I said. And good men don't fund parasites. Blue and red lights flashed against the shed walls. Tires crunched on gravel. Car doors slammed. Police. Show me your hands. I stepped back, raising my hands. She's all yours, Ryder, I said. As they cuffed her, dragging her screaming out of the shed, I walked out into the cool night air. I looked up at the sky. The clouds were breaking. The house was dark. My father was gone. My marriage was a lie. But the mission was accomplished. The flashing lights of the patrol cars faded into the distance, taking the chaos with them. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like the air before a tornado touches down. Ryder Callahan stayed behind. He stood on the porch, watching his team tape off the shed in the rose bush where they'd recovered the knife, a rusted, blood-stained blade that had once carved Sunday roasts. "You okay, kid?" Ryder asked, lighting a cigarette. The flame illuminated the deep lines of exhaustion on his face. "I'm standing," I said. "Clara is singing like a canary downtown," he said, exhaling a plume of smoke. "Gave us everything. The clothes, the timeline, the motive. Amelia's lawyer is going to have a hell of a time fighting this. Especially with that recording." "Good," I said. "What are you going to do now?" I looked at the house. It felt like a stranger's skin. "I don't know. Pack, I guess." "You can't stay here tonight," Ryder said. "Crime scene. Procedure. I'll sleep in my truck." He nodded, understanding. He didn't offer a guest room or a hotel voucher. He knew I wouldn't take it. He flicked his cigarette into the gravel. "You did good work, Blake. Your old man. He'd be proud. You cleaned up the mess." "Yeah," I said. "I cleaned it." Ryder clapped a hand on my shoulder, squeezed once, and walked to his cruiser. He drove away, leaving me alone in the driveway. But it wasn't over. Not really. Because while the law had Amelia, there was still one loose thread. One piece of the puzzle that hadn't been solved by handcuffs and Miranda rights. The money. Amelia said she owed loan sharks. She said she was in deep. People like that don't just disappear because their debtor goes to jail. They come for the next of kin. They come for the assets. And I wasn't going to let my father's legacy, this house, his hard work, be auctioned off to pay for my wife's sins. I got into my truck. I didn't sleep. I drove. I went back to the industrial district. Back to the shadows where I found Felix. But this time, I wasn't looking for a junkie. I was looking for a predator. I knew the type of people Amelia would have dealt with. Online poker sites are often fronts. If you lose big and can't pay, they refer you to credit partners. Local muscle. I pulled up Tristan's contact on my phone. Need a trace on the account Amelia was paying. The one she was draining Mason's money into. Find the endpoint. It took Tristan 20 minutes. Shell Company. Vanguard Logistics. Registered to a warehouse on 4th and Main. Front for the Russo Syndicate. Russo. I knew the name. Mid-level organized crime. They ran numbers, drugs, and high-interest loans. Nasty, but sloppy. I drove to 4th and Main. It was a nondescript brick building with blacked-out windows. A single security camera swept the entrance. I parked around the corner. I reached under the seat and pulled out a tire iron. It wasn't high-tech, but it was effective. I walked to the back door. Locked. I checked the frame. Old wood, rotten at the bottom. I wedged the iron in and shoved. The wood splintered with a groan, and the door popped open. I stepped inside. The warehouse was mostly empty, just stacks of crates and a card table in the center where 3 men were sitting, counting cash. They looked up, surprised. "Who the hell are you?" the guy in the middle asked. He was thick-necked, wearing a cheap suit. "I'm the guy closing the account," I said. "Get him," the suit yelled. The 2 other men stood up, reaching for waistbands. I didn't give them the chance. I threw the tire iron. It spun through the air and cracked the first guy in the knee. He went down screaming. I closed the distance to the second guy before he could draw his weapon. I drove my shoulder into his chest, slamming him into a stack of crates. He wheezed, the wind knocked out of him. I delivered a short, sharp hook to his jaw. He crumpled. That left the suit. He had a gun out now, but his hands were shaking. "Stay back," he yelled. "I'll shoot." "You already took $60,000 from my family," I said, walking toward him. "You think I care about a bullet? Stay back." I kept walking. He fired. The bullet whizzed past my ear, burying itself in the wall behind me. He panicked, fumbling to rack the slide again, but I was on him. I grabbed the gun barrel, twisting it up and away. I swept his legs and pinned him to the concrete floor. "Amelia Vance," I said. "Her debt is canceled." "You're crazy," he spat. "That's not how it works. The boss, The boss isn't here, I interrupted. I am. I leaned in close. You're going to send a message to your boss. You tell him the Vance account is closed. Permanently. And if anyone comes near my house or my family again, I won't come back with a tire iron. I'll come back with a team. And we won't be looking to talk. I stood up. The suit scrambled backward, terrified. Is we clear? I asked. Yes. Yes, clear. Just go. I walked out the back door. I left the tire iron. Consider it a tip. I drove back to the house as the sun was starting to rise. The sky was a bruised purple, bleeding into orange. I stood on the lawn and looked at the home my father built. The police tape fluttered in the morning breeze. The windows were dark. It looked lonely, but it was safe. I went inside. I walked through the empty rooms. The kitchen where he died. The living room where Clara lied. The bedroom where Amelia betrayed me. I couldn't stay here. Not yet. The ghosts were too loud. I packed a single bag. My uniforms. A few photos of Dad. The notebook. I walked out to the truck. I locked the front door and slid the key under the mat. I needed to go away. To decompose. To find the part of myself that wasn't a soldier or a husband or a hunter. I started the engine. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryder. She plead guilty. Deal is on the table. 25 to life. Clara gets 10 for cooperation. Justice. Cold, hard, and insufficient. But it was something. I put the truck in gear and pulled out of the driveway. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I headed west. Toward the mountains. Toward silence. I was a Navy SEAL. I had survived war. I had survived betrayal. Now, I had to survive peace. The mountains have a way of stripping you down. Up here, the air is thin, the wind is cold, and the silence is absolute. It's been 6 months since I drove away from that house. 6 months since I watched the woman I married get dragged into a police cruiser. 6 months since I put a period at the end of my father's life. I bought a small cabin near the tree line. It's simple. Wood stove, 1 room, no internet. Just me, the trees, and the ghosts. Ryder calls sometimes. He tells me the updates. Amelia took the plea deal. 25 years. She'll be an old woman when she gets out. Her beauty faded, her schemes forgotten. Clara is serving her time in a minimum security facility. Ryder says she knits blankets for the other inmates. Maybe she's trying to knit together some semblance of a soul. I don't ask. I don't care. The house, my father's house, is sold. I couldn't keep it. Too much blood in the floorboards. I took the money and set up a scholarship fund in Mason Vance's name for trade school students. Kids who want to work with their hands. Kids who want to build things, not destroy them. It felt right. It felt like something he would have done. I spend my days hiking, chopping wood, fixing the cabin. Physical labor is good. It quiets the noise in my head. Sometimes, when the wind howls through the pines at night, I think about them. I think about the lies, the betrayal, the sheer, terrifying capacity for evil that lived inside the people I was supposed to trust. I think about the moment in the shed, the click of the empty gun, the look on Amelia's face when she realized she had lost. It wasn't satisfaction I felt then. It was relief. The relief of knowing the threat was neutralized. But up here, alone with the stars, I'm starting to feel something else. Peace. Maybe not yet, but clarity. I realize now that my father didn't die in vain. He died protecting me. He died refusing to let them ruin my life. He took the knife so I wouldn't have to take the fall. And in return, I did what I was trained to do. I finished the mission. I walk out onto the porch of the cabin. The sun is setting, painting the snow-capped peaks in shades of gold and violet. It's beautiful. I take a sip of coffee. It's hot, bitter, and strong, just the way Dad liked it. Here's to you, old man. I whisper, raising the mug to the sky. A hawk circles overhead, riding the thermals, watching the world below with sharp, unblinking eyes. I'm not a husband anymore. I'm not a soldier anymore. I'm just Blake. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough. The world is messy. People lie. They hurt each other. They betray the ones they're supposed to love. But there is justice. Sometimes it's loud, like a gavel banging in a courtroom. Sometimes it's quiet, like a tire iron left in a warehouse. And sometimes it's just the act of surviving, of refusing to let the darkness turn you into one of them. I am still here. I am still standing. And that is the best revenge of all. Wow, that was a heavy journey. We've walked through betrayal, heartbreak, and the cold, hard road to justice with Blake. It makes you wonder, how well do we really know the people closest to us? I'd love to hear from you. If you were Blake, could you have walked away into the mountains, or would you have sought a different kind of revenge? It's a tough question, but I'm curious to know your heart. Also, I really want to connect with you guys. Where in the world are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments. It's amazing to see how far our family reaches. And one last thing, I create these stories for you. What kind of stories do you crave next? More military revenge? Supernatural thrillers? Or maybe deep family mysteries? Let me know in the comments, and I'll craft the next one just for you. If this story touched a nerve or kept you on the edge of your seat, please gently hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us bring more of these epic tales to life. Until next time, in our next thriller or epic revenge story, stay safe, stay sharp, and take care of each other.